Welcome to Let's Talk Passion and Purpose, the podcast where we explore the journeys of creators, leaders, and visionaries who've turned their passions into purpose. Join your host, Nicole Thomas, as we dive into inspiring stories, uncover strategies for success, and help you take the next step toward a life filled with meaning. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Passion and Purpose with Nicole Thomas. I'm excited because this evening I'm here with Shonda Buchanan. Shonda Buchanan is the author of 3 collections of poetry, Who's Afraid of Black Indians, Equipoise, and Poems from Goddess Country, as well as the award-winning memoir, Black Indian, chosen by PBS NewsHour as a top 20 books to read to learn about institutional racism. A professor at Western Michigan University and Alma College's MFA program in creative writing, Shonda's work has appeared in numerous anthologies and the Los Angeles Times, AWP's The Writer's Chronicle, Indian Country Today, Sisters of AARP, and others. All I have to say is welcome, welcome, welcome. Shonda, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'd love to start by asking, how did your journey as a writer and storyteller begin? What led you into this path?
So I'm going to start where a lot of writers start, with your crazy family. And the family, for me, that was loud and caustic and would make fun of you until you felt like, I can't even say anything in front of them. And so writing became a way for me to express and articulate my ideas and feelings without being ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
And I started writing at 9. At 9. Yeah, Harriet the Spy was one of my favorite books. I don't know why I almost said Harriet Tubman, but I didn't know Harriet Tubman at 9. But Harriet the Spy was one of my favorite books. And I kind of followed her model of, talking about my life and the neighbors and the neighborhood and really just being a busybody and a nosy person. But it helped me start to define my voice as a writer, and then also kind of be selective about my thoughts. And I always recommend it to young writers to say, hey, just start writing so you can start to really grow in your understanding, comprehension of the world through the exploration of writing in your voice. Just keep writing, don't stop, don't doubt yourself, don't judge yourself, just keep writing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. A lot of advice that's given is to keep writing, but it's easier said than done. I know you started at 9, but did you study writing in school?
I was incredibly lucky. So I was born and raised in Kalamazoo, Michigan. My first memoir is about being born and raised in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and then also having that ethnicity, the intersections of African American and American Indian. So being born here, it was such a rich oral narrative of, that you are Black and you're white and then you're Indian. But the way my mom said it was, she would continually phrase it, you have some white in you, some Indian in you, French and German, and a little bit of Black. And so my research question became, why do I only have a little bit of Black when I obviously identify as of color, like a Black person in America? And then where are those quote unquote Indians that you're talking about, Velma? To my mom, like, where are they? And so when you say, who taught me or did I study it? It was really like the research questions in my head were, where do we come from? And there's a book that I actually borrowed and then stole accidentally from my cousin called I Am the Darker Brother. And it was it was such a beautiful book. I actually still have that copy. It's was compiled and published in 1968 by Charlene. I want to say her last name was Rollins. She was a Chicago librarian, and she pulled together new Negro poets, Harlem Renaissance poets, even like Amiri Baraka, Black Arts Movement poet, Sonia Sanchez was published in this book. And so that became a class for me. I read and reread, and there was something about, and I was a kid. When I got this book, I was about 11. And that book became scholarship. It became interrogation. It became sociology lessons and anthropology lessons for me. And really, I never even asked the question as a kid, why am I not being taught this in school? It was more so, this book has given me more than I got in third and fourth and fifth and sixth grade about the Black experience. And I think that was
Mhm.
one of my formative moments. So I was doing what I tell my students to do. Um, when I worked at Hampton University, one of my common quotes in class was, "Please self-feed." Right?
Please
Please
self-feed.
self-feed. Don't just wait for your teacher to bring something to class. Or if you know it's out there and you can't find it, please self-feed.
Mm, that's powerful. So you've unpacked a lot right there. So Shonda, please self-feed. I need to write that somewhere because a lot of times we want people to feed us information. And then we have to discern the information that we are feeding ourselves when we decide to do
Mhm,
the research. Uh,
mhm.
I love the fact that you said that I am the darker brother played
Yeah.
so many roles in your development and your evolution as a writer. And so, what was one thing that you learned that just kept you fueled
Mhm,
to keep going forward with writing and focusing more on, I want to say diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is now the term that's
mhm,
covering embodying
mhm,
the work that you're
mhm,
doing.
mhm. So that is a fantastic question. I say, in terms of what kept me going, it was the sense that someone else could try to define who I am, and by their definition, they could disempower me, rather than in opposition to that, which is what Toni Morrison and Sonia Sanchez and Nikki Giovanni, rest her soul, and Lucille Clifton says, please celebrate with me that something has tried to kill me every day and failed. And for me, I say, please celebrate with me that I get to write who I am, and I get to write about those hidden narratives and the tapestries that I didn't learn, like Nina Simone tapestries, right? And I do a lot of this excavation in my upcoming book, The Lost Songs of Nina Simone. But really, it's that sense of, how can I language myself? How can I continue on with that tradition of those great Black women writers and Black male writers, James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, we can go back, Phyllis Wheatley, Jupiter Hammond. How can I continue to language myself in a way that I give myself authenticity and I validate my own being and my own existence here, no matter what those non-marginalized people or entities say. So language has always been this way of, how do I get to say who I am? And when do I need to assert that? And then when do I need to just keep quiet because I don't need to argue? I know who I am.
Mhm. It's powerful, truly powerful. Defining yourself and being able to know when to assert yourself and knowing when to be quiet.
Yeah.
And a lot of us sometimes don't know when silence is the best option, is the best
That's,
strategy for us.
yeah, I think Nina Simone came up in a time when and her art and her craft, like, she was a genius. She was a
Mhm.
genius who didn't really get that continued status as a genius in America. And so I think she was continually trying to assert and to say and to show, I'm a concert pianist. I am this creative genius who can sing, who can play the piano, who can make the piano a percussion instrument, right?
Mhm.
And how is it that I'm still not paid what I should be paid, like equivalent to other musicians? Or how is it that I'm continually getting stolen from? I I mean, there were so many things that she encountered, which is indicative of the Black woman experience, actually, in America, and the sense that we do hold a lot of society up, and carry them through, and we are caretakers of them. And so it's interesting that her silence, when her silence happened, it was because she was exhausted and she was
Mm.
tired, and she was like, okay, I'm going to Liberia. And even in Liberia, she wasn't quiet, but she did
Mhm.
party and rest. So yeah.
Ready to rest. Love that. Love that. You just mentioned the lost songs of Nina Simone. Why don't we dive into your
Mhm.
upcoming book? Can you tell
Mhm.
us more and in its importance? Almost like why now?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Why now? No one has tried to explore the areas that I'm looking at around Nina Simone and her life. So I'm looking at the landscape and the heredity and the legacy before she was born. So I'm looking at her family. I'm looking at the tapestry of South Carolina and then North Carolina, which is where she was born, in Tryon, North Carolina. I'm looking at how her family's coming together at that time, pre-Jim Crow, you know, during Jim Crow South, what it was like for them as poor Black people in North Carolina. And then how people and the community and her white piano teacher invested so much in her as a child to create this prodigy, like to help her. And so I'm looking at my book, why now? It's because I want people to delineate when you can help a young Black girl see her gifts, support her gifts, use those gifts for the betterment of the community and the country. And I think often there are moments, I've taught a lot of young Black girls, and I could see in their eyes sometimes that there's a sense of, and it was in my eyes too, as a young person, that I don't know how much I matter. How much do I actually matter? And then who will help me? Who will support me? And so I
Mhm.
think my book I think my book is really, really looking at that. And then also, I want to declare this book. I'm using this book as a platform to say this is the century of the Black woman. Like, this is the time when we get to we get to pull all our talents and all our magic. And yes, the momentum behind Kamala Harris continues on. It came from someplace, and it is still here. It has not dissipated. And so I want us to hold space for Black woman genius. So yes, so I'm calling this the
Mhm.
century of the Black woman.
The century of the Black woman. Wow. How empowering. In such
Yeah.
a time as this now, when we
Yeah.
need it most, when we're
Hmm.
exhausted,
Hmm.
when we have lifted up so many initiatives and we've been selfless,
Yes,
yet we don't always see the fruit of our labor. Your
exactly.
call to action with this book is it, I'm hearing support as well, support talent,
Hmm.
and it's a platform, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, the center
Hmm.
for Black women, right? It's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Thank you. I love that. Can I also say allow us to rest, support Black women, and then allow us to rest, actually see that we do need the kind of support that the National Endowment for the Arts, gives $25,000 just to create something. Or if you have a foundation, create something for, Black women, period. And just say, hey, you know what? Do you need to rest and write? Let me give you a 3-month like writing retreat. And I had that happen to me twice recently. Like literally, um, two women, one, they had me on their podcast. And then afterwards, a couple of months later, they contacted me and they said, we'd like you to be a part of a rest collective. And I'm like, what is that? And so it was Francina Call and Jackie Gao. Francina is Zimbabwean. And so they have an organization that's called Reseed. So they said, okay, the Rest Collective will take you. So we're going to do a couple of online sessions with 5 other Black women. You are 6. And then we're going to pay for you guys to go to Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya. And I was like,
Amazing.
not Nairobi, New Jersey, but Kenya, Kenya. And she was like, yeah, so we want to do that. We want to show you guys what, we want to celebrate you because you are some of the hardest working women, that we have seen. So I was like, oh my God, I mean, that's what we need more of. And I had another group in California. Nikki Cheney is a former poet laureate of San Bernardino. And she wrote a grant, she and another woman, for Black women to rest and write in San Diego, in Oceanside, California. And the grant paid for me to go. It paid for the Oceanside condo, for the women, for all the food. And I'm thinking, this is what we need. We need a place to be safe and to see ourselves and to rest and to engage in that really important work that we need to do. And because we're not going to stop doing the work. It's in our nature.
It is.
So that's what we need. Yes.
It is. And I just got chills because when you said it's in our nature, I almost feel as if it's intrinsic. It's just so much a part of us, just giving and giving and giving.
Yes.
And we just don't always pour into ourselves or see the value in our contributions.
Mm-hmm.
You've published poetry, memoirs, essays, and you're working on new books, new work. Can you walk us through what your creative process looks like? Do you follow a structured routine or is it more fluid for you?
It's much more fluid for me. I used to follow, I used to follow a structured routine as a young writer. And I'd say, okay, I have to take my daughter to school, and then I have to go to work, and then I have to go to school myself. So I will write between midnight and 4 a.m. Or on the weekends, if my daughter was with me or if she went to her grandmother's house, I'd say, okay, I'll spend the weekend writing. So I was very structured. And now, as an older writer, I guess established, if we want to say that, I'm more so, what project do I need to focus on right now? And if I need to focus on a project to complete a project, then I'll say, okay, I'm going to work on the second memoir, which I'm working on a second memoir. And the tentative title is Bend, Kick, Fly. It's my Black woman's Eat, Pray, Love.
I love this.
Yeah, so it's juicy though. It's like juicy.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. And what is the title, the working title again?
Bend, Kick, Fly.
Fly.
Bend, Kick,
I can't
Fly.
wait.
I'm excited about that. And I'm working on a couple of collections of poetry as well. And it's fun. So this is how my process. A woman reached out to me and she said, hey, I have this exhibit about Black Indian intersections in Los Angeles, in California, Zoe Black. And she said, I'd like to commission you, pay you a little money to write a poem. I said, sure. So I wrote that poem yesterday, right? Like in an hour. And I felt like, oh my God, this is like probably one of the best poems that I've written about this subject. And then simultaneously, I've had other people say, hey, would you contribute to this anthology? I'm like, okay, yeah. And so I find myself when I'm writing these poems, I know which book it goes into, and I can just slot it right into that book. Same thing for essays. So if I say, for example, before I went to Kenya, I was sitting in an airport in North Carolina. And North Carolina is, for me, it's where my people's people came from. It's the Cherokee land, the Koala Band, Eastern Band Cherokee. So I was sitting in the airport writing an essay about how I'm sitting in one homeland, like on one homeland and I'm about to fly to another homeland. And so, and I said, okay, will this essay go in a collection that I'm working on right now? Or is this a new collection? What are you doing? So I'm fluid.
Oh,
Where will
that
this
is,
go?
and you go with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned you wrote something in an hour, so it's on demand. How do you produce work immediately? And you said that was some of your best work.
Yeah. I knew the subject matter. I also knew she'd given me an image to work with. And then I poured, or actually I will say folded the images in the poem around the image that she gave me. And so that's actually a technique called ekphrastic poetry, which is when you write about a piece of art or an artist. For example, my entire book about Nina Simone is an ekphrastic book. Some persona poems, some poems just created from imagination, things she hadn't even thought about as an artist herself, or that was represented. Um, and then a lot of what I read. So that's ekphrastic. So I would say for me it was the sense of, again, pushing myself as an artist and as a poet and saying, wait a minute, I haven't written about something from this perspective or in this context as of yet. Even though I live this life, maybe these are, some poems, maybe I could do a series, of poems that look specifically at this aspect of being Black Indian and then incorporating spirituality. So,
And incorporating spirituality.
yeah.
Tell us more about the aspect of spirituality and
Mm,
how it flows or how your work embodies this
yeah.
aspect.
So I come from a family of dreamers whose dreams would come true. And no one can tell me that that's supernatural hooey. Um, I have had it happen to me. My mom has had it happen to her, my aunts, my sisters. Right. So I grew up as someone knowing that there's another world. And some people will say another world. Yes, there's there's another world. So there's a world between worlds. Participating in African and Indigenous ceremonies has deepened that knowing for me. And then being able to articulate and write about those in a way, those experiences, those spiritual engagements. So, for example, if I'm writing about any of the Orishas, the West African Orishas, which I do believe that I have Ife, some Ife in me, Ife religion in me, West African religion. Before I did my DNA, I said, oh, okay, I've got something. So it's like, okay, how do you incorporate that? How do you write about it? And so I have written about it. Continues the same thing with the American Indian piece. How do you write about those kinds of ceremonies? Again, being respectful. So my the second memoir that I'm working on right now does talk about, like, I call it how I became Indian, right? So how did I find those ceremonies? How did I engage the ceremonies? How did I learn to do these, like, dance powwow, make my own regalia, sing on a powwow drum? How did I do these things? And how do I write about it in a way that it's respectful? So I have a tradition actually of authors who have done this, like Leslie Marmon Silko with ceremony, like Joy Harjo with Crazy Brave and all of her books. Joy Harjo's books are so incredibly amazing. Our twice poet laureate.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I can even look at some of Toni Morrison, of course, coming back to Beloved and Song of Solomon. And, how are the ways, how is language a way to access and to share and validate those spiritual unspoken connections that we have? And so I think
Mhm.
that I'm both experiencing it and then also trying to be respectful and mindful in the sharing and in the writing of it.
Well, for preservation, of course, as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely for preservation.
Mhm.
I do know a lot of Black Indians who practice both African and indigenous spirituality. So, for example, powwows themselves are just gatherings, that we go to, but then the sweat lodge is an experience that we actually put ourselves into experience, or a Sundance, or a corn dance, or anything, a green stomp corn dance is what they call it. The same thing for the African religions. When you go to, say, a Babalao's home, which the home is a temple, and then all these other people have shown up to celebrate the Ife and the Orishas. And so, how do you, and then how do you not scare away people who were raised in the Christian church? So how do you allow for the sense of, we are not monolithic? We, as African people in America, like Black Americans with the seed of Africa in us, how do we allow for those multiplicity of identities and embrace them and let them empower you? And so I find myself writing a lot about that, and giving lectures and talks about that as well.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. So, Shonda, what keeps your creative spirit alive?
It's a great question. Okay, I'm gonna have to use all of this for a reel, for my speaker's reel. Okay, ask me the question one more time, so I want to make sure I'm fresh.
What keeps your creative spirit alive?
Necessity.
Tell me more.
The necessity to enter into the fray, because it hasn't been done before from my perspective, in a continuous way. And I,
Okay.
yeah, and I believe what I find myself doing sometimes is I find myself speaking to someone or a group of people as if they understand what I'm saying. And then I look at their eyes and they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh." It's like, "Oh, you haven't had the training." Like, "Oh, you haven't done sweat lodge, or you don't know what cedar is for," and so I find myself having to say, there is a trail, there is a road that hasn't been walked yet in our psyche, in our public conversation, in our in our Black church, in our education system, and bringing forth the Black Indian, the multiple raciality narrative, and not denigrating any one of them, right? And pulling them all together to say, this is a tapestry. Isn't this beautiful? Look at the work. Look at the colors and how they blend, and the narratives and the stories and the thread. Isn't this beautiful? Isn't this worth it? Isn't this valid?
Yes. Embracing the diversity,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what makes the tapestry. When you
Mm-hmm.
pull it all together, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost this mosaic of
Mm-hmm.
it's just beautiful. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
sharing.
Thank you.
Entering into the fray. And I almost
Yeah.
wonder, how does someone, and not just a creative, not just a
Yeah.
writer, because the idea is to bring everyone along on this journey. How can someone go about entering the fray, the road that hasn't been walked yet? It's almost like the surrender of, I have to be able to walk this path.
Mm-hmm.
But from your
Mm-hmm.
perspective, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking from it. This
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability, this willingness to
Yeah.
be a part of something so beautiful, but I have to release what's been
Yeah.
holding me back. But from your perspective, what does that mean for someone to walk into the fray?
Tell your stories.
Mm-hmm.
The, stories are a natural portal. Narratives. You can go back to the enslaved African narratives. You can go to first accounts, of people who were quote unquote considered illiterate, but actually, if we're going to indigenous people who didn't speak English, and, writing wasn't a concept for them until Sequoyah created, right, a language for his people in relation to English. So tell your stories. I think that's the way to enter the conversation of humanity. I think it's also narratives and stories are a way for us to see that we are not so dissimilar, that we actually want and desire the same kinds of things, but there is a hierarchy that is a spiritual, that functions as a spiritual rupture for humanity. And narratives are a way for us to come back to it. So, for example, right now we are about to vote into office. Not we, because I didn't vote for him, but we're going to vote into office someone whose persona is all about rupture. And I'm not saying anything that no one, people haven't said before, or that you can't see for yourself or see for the criminal records, that he has or what he said. And so how do we function now? And this is why I think my book, the Nina Simone book, the Black Indian, the memoir, are important as contributions to this discussion. How do you survive and function in a society where that is considered the norm and accepted, when the holistic part of us knows, the holistic spiritual and right-minded part of us knows that's not acceptable? These are the things that we need to function as humans, together, right here. And so that's what the next some people keep saying 10 years, but I'm like, no, I can't. Let me function in 4, like 4 and 4, let's function in 4. But mine is like, how is it that we get to do this work of staying human and writing about it and presenting about it, so that we come out as unscathed as possible?
Mm-hmm.
We will see. We will see.
Yeah. To come out unscathed. That's powerful. The literary world can sometimes feel like a tough space to navigate, especially from underrepresented voices. What challenges have you faced along the way, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So my book, Black Indian, was being shopped first by one of the premier African-American agents, literary agents, Marie Brown. Marie Brown was introduced to me. Oh my gosh, how did I meet Marie? Gosh, I can't remember. It's been years. Anyway, so I was shopping it probably 5 years before I got published. No, I'm so sorry. Let me back up. 5 years before I met my publisher. But Marie Brown shopped it in New York to the major houses. The major houses said, we love the book, but she doesn't have a platform. And this is when social media was becoming, something that was of interest to authors. To agents and to the industry. But then also, I was not a celebrity. So what they said was, oh, she's competing with, Steve Harvey and these other people. But white authors weren't competing with Steve Harvey. And, white authors weren't actually at the time, African authors were becoming important voices as well. And so it was like, really, the market wants this at this time. And who does she know? She doesn't really know anyone. Oh, I knew a few people, but it was like, she doesn't really know anyone. She's not really that connected. And so Marie was so disappointed. I mean, even the Black agents that editors that she shopped it to, many of them are no longer at the houses. Every 5 years, it seems, there's an upheaval, and then a lot of the Black editors at the major houses just get kind of tossed to the side because they're no longer, like, the work, quote unquote, is no longer in demand. So I would say that that's one of the challenges that I faced, is the sense of, I'll call it a discrepancy, but it's really just, discrimination in the industry.
Mhm.
So many of my books were published, all of my books were published at indie houses. So my first book, and it's an anthology, was published in when was that published? 2006. That was Voices from Leimert Park, and it was published by a friend of mine. It was a compilation of color Black poets, and that was Voices from Leimert Park. And then in 2012, my Who's Afraid of Black Indians, which is a collection of poetry, a small collection of poetry, came out, indie press. And then, Equipoise, 2017, San Francisco Bay Press. And then, and at the same time, that same year, the second edition of Voices from Leimert Park came out. Leimert Park is an area in Los Angeles, which we called it our African Village, and the World Stage Performance Workshop was a place that all Black writers came to, and then it became everyone else started coming. And so the second anthology incorporates all voices and all races. And then 2019, my memoir, Black Indian, came out, indie press, Wayne State University Press. And that's a great story. I was at AWP, the Association of Writers and Writing Programs, and I was walking past Wayne State's table, and I saw a sign that said, Made in Michigan Authors. And I thought, I was made in Michigan. I'm from Kalamazoo. Was born in Kalamazoo. So I stopped at the table, talked to the woman who was there, who happened to be the acquisitions editor at the time, Annie Martin. And she said, oh, sure, just send me your book. It sounds really interesting. So by the time I left her table, I had my book already queued up in my phone via email, and I sent it to her. And I was like, okay, this is the work. This is the business. Like, I'm learning. This is what it means. And I think that might have been was it 2017? I think it was like March 2017, because I think that's when it was in Los Angeles. So I didn't hear anything from her until I was at a writing retreat in Wyoming. And so it had to be June or July 2017. And I got an email from her saying, please forgive me. I had a death in the family. I really want to publish your book. And it was like, what? Oh my God, this is amazing. And so that's when you see that university presses and indie presses are probably the bread and butter of authors whose platforms don't look like what major houses want. And so it would be nice to publish with a major house, but it's really a part of, like, how do you play the game? What does your social media look like? Where do you show up? Who do you know? And so I've been really lucky to create a rich community of writers around me, to be with my current press, Running Wild Press, is publishing my Lost Songs of Nina Simone. And actually, one of my writing friends became the editor of an imprint there, Rise Press. And I sent my book to him, and he said, we want to publish your book. And I thought, oh, thank you. Thank you, Cody. Thank you so much. I've been trying to shop this Nina book to a couple of people, but it seemed like no one else saw the vision, and Running Wild saw the vision. So I'm really grateful to Cody and Lisa, who is the owner of Running Wild Press.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
thank you for opening our eyes to explore university presses, because a lot of writers want to go straight to traditional houses.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they don't get accepted, then they go towards self-publishing. But university presses, that is an area to explore.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many, all of them. I mean, there's, oh my gosh, you know, everyone has one, all the major universities, Iowa, Colorado, Arizona, I mean, all of the universities have presses. Anyone can just Google university presses and they'll find the list. It'll come up.
Great. Thank you for that guidance. So you've been nominated for major awards like the Pushcart Prize, and you've mentioned other writers. How do you push yourself to evolve as an artist, and how do you encourage others to do the same?
Yeah, what's interesting now is I'm pushing myself to submit more because as I get technically an established author, so this would be my sixth book coming out, my fourth book of poetry, third book of poetry. And so I have to force myself to continue to submit because that's a part of the game as well. So when I say submit, you go to Submittable, you can go to Dual Trope, you can go to Poets and Writers. Look in their classifieds, but it's submit your poems for publication individually, submit to contests, continue to submit to the National Endowment for the Arts and, other places. So that's actually something that I'm a bit more disciplined in when I say today is the submission day. And I'm teaching my students to do that as well. And I'm saying, okay, today for class, it's submission day. And they're like, huh? I'm like, one of the poems that you wrote in class, we're going to go on Submittable. You're going to create an account and you're going to write a query letter or an email, to introduce yourself, whatever they need, and you're going to submit. And so I think I'm more disciplined right now with that submission piece. Yeah, so that's a part of it as well. Yeah, and then I think the other aspect that I want to highlight is having community, having writers from all walks of life who can read your work and hopefully it will resonate with them. That gives you a sense of anyone will buy my book, or this group, this demographic will buy my book because I have these supportive writers around me who will tell me exactly what I need to know. And then, where I'm falling a little short or where I need to enhance or where I need to what I need to fix. And I have a novel that I'm working on that I've been working on for a long time. I'll call it a 10-year novel. And I've sent it around to friends, and I only submitted it to one agent, and the agent gave me she gave me some feedback on it, and then I said, okay, this is great. I'm getting feedback from her, and then someone else, and then I went on to another project. And I was like, oh, okay, this didn't get, she didn't want to pick this up right now. Let me go back to this one that just got picked up. So, and now let me start publicizing it and let me get a book publicist. And so that's always, in my back pocket, I guess I'll say. But I've had writer friends and teachers say your first book project is a throwaway book. Like you write it and you throw it away, or you won't publish that. I refuse to believe that. I refuse. I'm like, that book is coming out. So mark my words that I'm going to get that book edited and I'm going to work on it. And that book is coming out, even if it's a trilogy.
Even if it's a trilogy. That's a powerful mindset. Thank you so much for sharing that information. So you're working on a range of projects right now, from poetry about Black Lives Matter to exploring mixed race migration in your upcoming essay collection. What excites you most about these new works, and what do you hope your readers take away?
Wow. So my Black Lives Matter collection, I'm older now, and I can say this. The Black Lives Matter collection is a deep dive and a heavy dive into the loss of Black lives due to police brutality and violence and obfuscation. And it is the place where it's almost like the old Negro spirituals that you gotta sing about it. You gotta say something about the pain, and you gotta testify. And I think this book is definitely a way for me to testify for myself and for those who lost them and for this community, for us. And again, it goes back to, that contribution. So John Edgar Wideman wrote an essay about Emmett Till many years ago. And in the essay, he likens Emmett Till to an African fetish. The African fetish being something that is an object that allows humans to cross over into the spiritual realm. And he was essentially saying that Emmett Till allowed us to like what happened to him, the whole ethos and motif forced us to cross over into a different kind of realm. And when his mother left that casket open. And so for me, writing about Black Lives Matter and women mattering and Sandra Bland and Trayvon Martin and Phyllis Wheatley, like I'm pulling all of us, all those strands and threads together. I'm even including poems about Aunt Jemima and how in one of my poems, Aunt Jemima says, they are right. The white people are eating me. Right. Right. And so it's a work of exorcism, actually, I think. If I think of that book like that. And so because that is a heavy book, now I'm at the place where I know coming from that place, because once it's out there and published, I'm going to be asked to read from it. So I need a counterbalance. And so the counterbalance for me is this what I'm envisioning now is a new collection to talk about Africanism, Pan-Africanism, like what Black people thought about, sought in an Africanness, like connection to the motherland, and how it was sought after in love, no matter what happened. And so that this next collection, and hopefully it'll be essays and not just poems, because even though I love poems, but I really want a sense of love and redemption and salvation and, a place like, I guess it'll be language resting. But I want language resting, like a place where language can rest. And so I want that counterbalance. And I guess like I said, I'm old enough where I can say, okay, yes, you write that hard book and you're going to read from that hard book. And now let's get a book about love and joy and blessings.
Wow, that's beautiful. I can't wait. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we wrap up, if there's one message or piece of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners, especially those pursuing their passion and purpose, what would it be?
For those pursuing your passion and your purpose, I would say it's okay to write about or engage whatever it is that you want continually, in private, publicly. Like, allow for that passion to manifest in a way that feels good for you. Don't try not to allow whatever that is that you're passionate about to burn you out. And give yourself that sense of, oh, this is my work. This is my, what we call vocation. And then once you realize something is your vocation, like I mentioned to you that I want to start a writing retreat for women of color in my backyard in Kalamazoo, Michigan, right?
Looking forward to learning more.
Yes, I would love to have you. And I realized that now is a part of my work and my passion. So I'm a book doula. I help people's stories come out. I consult. I'm doing this in my classes. I've been doing this for the last 25 years, in fact, helping my students tell their stories. And I also teach for PEN America, and I'm emerging voices mentor and mentee. And so I want to help, and I think this is my new vision is I want to help women of color tell their stories. so that my writing retreat is going to be a place, and this is the cultivation. This is what it means to manifest, is to say, this will be the place that feeds me and feeds you, right? And so it's not going to burn me out. This is where I want to do the work, and I'm thinking about it, and it fuels me and it feeds me. And so for anyone who has that passion about something, let it be the thing that feeds and fuels you, the place where you get to say, oh, I did this, and this is good. This is a good thing.
I tell you, we covered a lot of ground.
Yes.
And I know you have a lot of projects underway. The Lost Songs of Nina Simone is coming out. Is it May?
May 26, 2025. And I have a lot of readings coming up too.
Oh, this is amazing. So, what's next?
So I teach at a couple of universities. I teach at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I really want to. So this is what I have my far-reaching eye is: how do I help these students tell the story of Michigan? You know, particularly just people who haven't articulated Michigan as of yet. There's so much here. There's so much here. I mean, this is what my memoir, Black Indian, started. And I teach at Alma College's MFA program. It's a low residency program in Michigan. It's actually the only low residency MFA program in Michigan at Alma College, ALMA. I know Sophronia Scott is the director, and she's like, make sure you mention, our project. I'm sorry, our program. And I think for me, the MFA program, teaching creative writing and helping those students who are mostly Michigan or Midwestern students, a couple live in North Carolina now, but it's how do we situate the Midwest in a place that gives it as much credence as New York or as California or as the South or the Appalachia, right? How do we show that the Midwest has its own motif and its own aesthetic and its own unique narratives and stories in a way that we haven't heard before? And so when you say what's next, I think a part of me being on the board of the Kalamazoo Poetry Festival, being on the Kalamazoo Arts Council board, I am a member of the Michigan Poetry Society.
Wow.
So I know. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing all this? But it's really about narrative. It's about story. It's how can I help? And I think that's what I do. Like, I can see people's stories in 5 minutes. Like, I can help you outline your book in 5 minutes.
That sounds wonderful. Wonderful. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me. This has been a delight.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm honored to have you on the podcast. Where can we find you? My last question. Where can we find you on social media?
ShondaBuchanan.com. Instagram, I'm mostly on Instagram at ShondaBuchanan.com. I rarely tweet. But I think my focus is Instagram and Facebook. I'm on Facebook a lot, but I'm going to pull together my YouTube channel so you can I do have a YouTube channel, so you can go on my YouTube channel and watch some of my videos and my book trailers as well. But please come to my readings. I will be posting my readings and support. And also, I'm not sure when this will air, but I'm creating a major email campaign to ask people to buy the Nina Simone book before it's published. So I'm going to do two. I'm going to do February 21st, which is when she was born, and to say, please pre-buy. And then I'm also going to do April 21st, which is when she passed, which is when she died, to say, please pre-buy the book before it comes out. So try to put me on the bestsellers list.
Wonderful. So to my audience, please look out for the pre-sale February 21st, as well as April 21st. Mm-hmm. Thank you again, Shonda, for being a guest on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining Let's Talk Passion and Purpose. I hope you're leaving inspired and ready to elevate your journey. Remember to subscribe, rate, and share if you enjoyed today's episode. Stay connected, follow your passion, live purposefully, and we'll see you next time.